Anna is my name. I am an architect, and I am 25 years old. I work at a nearby architectural business and read books for relaxation on my days off. My current tranquil existence is in sharp contrast to the unbearably turbulent upbringing I had. It wasn't my real parents who made me happy. Rather, it was my 12-year-old aunt, who is constantly happy and full of love. I want to talk about some of my favorite memories of Mom today. My severe parents treated me badly when I was a youngster, and this was most evident in the first grade. All I could say was, "I'm sorry," in response to their scolding. Making such a simple mistake, don't you think it's embarrassing not to get a perfect score on a first grader's test? My mother used to lament, why did such a child come from us? With disappointment. Their moans were heartbreakingly terrible. I felt a mixture of grief and irritation at not living up to their high standards. My mother is a nurse, and my father is a doctor. I was born into a family of doctors in a wealthy part of a small city. I was sent to private schools from an early age, with the expectation that I would become a doctor. But in contrast to what my family and friends had expected, I did poorly academically, and it was difficult for me to place well. My parents continuously annoyed me and made me feel unwelcome as soon as I started school. Even so, I spent a lot of time studying by myself at home and at cram schools when I got back, all in an effort to win my parents' favor. Conversely, my sister Doris, who was a year younger than I was, had great academic talent. She was learning sophisticated material, even beyond my kindergarten years. This implied that she would do better on the tests if we took them together. My parents, understandably, were enthralled with the ambitious Doris and devoted most of their time and finances to her, forcing me to drop out of school before I could complete the second grade. My parents' sudden departure shocked me, so I spent a lot of time studying alone, in an effort to become well. Despite my best efforts, my parents continued to view me as a depressed, withdrawn person, in addition to being a terrible student. But we had a close sisterly tie, and Doris always thought highly of me. This was comforting, for sure. But my hatred of myself for being my sister's inferior never went away. The unequal treatment intensified when my sister Doris started school, and I moved up to the second grade. During vacations, my parents would frequently take Doris alone to the city's theaters and museums to enhance her education. I was made to remain home by myself till supper and told, "Giving pearls to pigs who don't appreciate their value is a waste." Doris never said anything to our parents, yet she constantly had a guilty look on her face. I cried all the time when I was by myself at home, listening to the happy sounds of other families from the outside. I thought I was stupid, and that my parents didn't give a damn about me. Thinking that love from parents was everything, I was always blaming myself. Then, one day, my parents, perhaps believing they couldn't leave me alone for 2 days, decided to take just Doris on an overnight excursion to a far-off museum. I was roused up quickly the morning of the trip and transported to an old apartment in the next town over. My father rang the doorbell there, looking dissatisfied, and a disheveled blonde lady answered. It was Caro, my aunt, and my father's considerably younger sister. My father spoke to me for a little while. Then, without even looking at me, he went back to the car with a big suitcase and drove off. Caro, who was drowsy, murmured, "Come," gesturing with her chin to the chamber. Caro and I weren't really close, so I hadn't spent much time with her, and had only spoken to her a few times. "Remain away from Caro. She's from the lower class and barely finished middle school," my father had told me on several occasions. To be honest, Caro's platinum blonde hair and gray sweater gave off a rather unsettling initial impression. I was uncomfortable when I sat on the living room's tiny couch, though, even though I was worried about leaving her in charge. The aroma of cooking struck me with a sudden calm. Caro showed up with it, carrying a platter filled with scones and clam chowder. She said, "Didn't have breakfast, did you?" And I sipped on the clam chowder, hesitantly answering, "No, thank you." My mouth slowly filled with the delicious broth. Delicious, right? Clam chowder is the best for breakfast, Caro laughed. Caro's warm smile and the clam chowder eased my tension. Over the next 2 days, Caro took great care of me. The stews and risotto she made were delicious, and I ate without any reservations. While she watched over me, she would smile and ask, "Want some more?" as she offered additional servings. Furthermore, Caro took me to the zoo and genuinely enjoyed showing me around, pointing out, "Look at that gorilla, isn't it cool?" That day at the zoo was truly enjoyable. From then on, whenever my family went on trips, I was always left in her care. Caro always welcomed me warmly. Gradually, I came to trust her and was genuinely drawn to her warm personality. Caro often said, "I always wanted a little sister like you," and treated me with great care. However, while my parents continued to leave me with her, they spoke ill of her. I heard that Caro had troubles during middle school and did not go on to high school. According to my father, she ended up in a bottom-tier job and barely made a living. "If you don't want to end up like her, don't slack off in your studies," my father would say half-jokingly when he was drunk. I had always believed my father's words as absolute, but I found it hard to accept his assessment of Caro. She was skilled in cooking and a very good person. I could not understand why she was spoken of so negatively. The difference in how my parents treated my sister and me worsened day by day. By the time I was in 3rd grade, I was given only the bare minimum of clothes and food, barely avoiding a report to Child Protective Services. Although my parents were known as local dignitaries, outsiders would never imagine they were capable of such behavior. When I focused on studying, I was told, "You're a nuisance if you don't leave the room, so get out," and was chased outside. Whether I studied or not, the situation was harsh. I wasn't allowed to return home until dusk, and without any trustworthy friends or adults, I had to spend my time learning in parks or libraries. However, on weekends, Caro warmly welcomed me. Caro was the only one who cared about my health. One day, as I was eating the fluffy omelet she had made, Caro suddenly made a proposal. "Anna, would you like to live with me?" she asked. As I sat stunned, she gently stroked my head with her cold hand. "If you feel life at home is hard, think of me as a parent. We'll eat together every day, sleep side by side, and even go to the zoo sometimes," she said. Could such a dreamlike proposal be real? Just hearing it felt surreal. "But you might not want a dumb parent like me," she laughed self-deprecatingly. I blurted out, "That's not true." Her proposal was incredibly appealing. However, I questioned whether I could truly wish for such a thing. Caro was still unmarried, and I worried that living with me might burden her. Additionally, I considered whether my parents would see it as a betrayal. "Caro, is it really possible for me to live with you?" I asked quietly. Caro gave a thumbs up and replied with a smile, "It's okay, okay." It was an irreplaceable moment. I strongly desired to become like family with Caro and made up my mind. Later, Caro discussed this with my parents, but their opposition to me living at her house was surprisingly strong. It seemed to stem not from affection, but rather from a concern for social appearances. They disliked the idea of having to explain to the community why one family member was missing. After much discussion, it was decided that I would simply stay as a lodger at Caro's house, and no adoption took place. Once everything was settled, things moved quickly. With just my essentials and my school bag, I moved to Caro's house. On the last day at home, my parents coldly said, "Don't neglect your studies. If you become a nuisance and trouble us, we'll send you to an institution right away." Only my sister seemed genuinely sad about my departure, but even my young sister could sense that I was being neglected by our family. As she tearfully said goodbye, she told me, "Big sister, I love you." Though I still harbored feelings for my family, my sister's tears pained me. When I appeared before Caro with mixed emotions, she greeted me with a beaming smile, exclaiming, "Yay! I'm so happy you've come to stay with me." At that moment, I vowed to become a family with Caro that neither of us would be ashamed of. Starting a new life with Caro was not without its challenges. Support from my parents was minimal, and I had to transfer from a private to a public school. Despite this, every day was filled with joy. When I struggled with homework, Caro would sit with me and look through the textbooks, trying her best to find the answers together. Even when I didn't score perfectly on tests, she would celebrate my 90%, saying, "90 points is amazing. You're really something, Anna." With Caro's support, I gradually became more outgoing, made friends to play with after school, stopped going to cram schools, and spent less time studying. Strangely, my grades improved even without much effort, and I was able to maintain top marks in my class. The chronic stomach pains and fatigue that I had disappeared, a significant change for me. I believe they were due to the stress caused by my parents' strictness during my childhood. By the time I reached 6th grade, I had grown emotionally. The influence of my parents began to fade, and I freed myself from the narrow worldview they had created. As my sister got older, she started sneaking out to visit me at Caro's house. She was still performing well academically, which made our parents proud, but she seemed to have other interests and often expressed her frustrations to me. When Caro cooked, My sister would watch with shining eyes and always help out by her side. 8 years flew by since I started living with Caro, and I enrolled in a national university's architecture department. There was a special reason I chose this faculty. Also, because I received a grant-based scholarship, I didn't need to ask for financial support from my parents. And I didn't burden Caro either. On the day I was accepted to my first-choice university, Caro cried tears of joy and made my favorite dish, seafood paella. Over celebratory drinks, she sprinkled her conversation with stories of her own origins, revealing that she was the result of her mother's affair. While her father initially raised Caro as his own child, concerned about public perception, he ultimately treated her without affection. Despite her early longing for parental love, Caro entered a rebellious phase and became almost estranged from her parents, who were, in fact, my paternal grandparents. "Anna, you've turned out so well. You didn't follow the wrong paths I did, and you've grown so much," Caro said. By the time she was 30, the flamboyance of her youth had faded, and Caro's serene gaze was filled with deep emotion as she looked at me. "It's all because you were there, Caro. Without you, I don't know where I would be." The thought of what could have happened if Caro hadn't offered to become my family that day made me shiver. Caro caressed my head with the same affection as she had 8 years ago. A year after I started my hopeful student life, a spring day brought an unexpected confrontation at my apartment. It was my parents, their eyes red with anger. "Did you two deceive Doris?" they shouted. What?" I replied, caught off guard. "What happened to Doris? Which medical school is she going to?" I asked back, which only deepened the redness in their faces. "Don't joke. You must know about Doris. Doris has gone off to do her own thing." My father was too agitated to finish his sentence. I knew what had upset them, so I responded appropriately. It seems Doris has enrolled in culinary school. Did you put her up to this? You've given her these bad ideas." I hadn't done anything of the sort. In reality, while Doris let our parents believe she was preparing for medical school, she had secretly aspired to study nutrition and was accepted into that program. She will be starting her studies in nutrition, not medicine, this April. "You think you're in a low place? So you're jealous of your sister becoming a doctor? How wicked!" My mother accused me angrily. "That's not true. Doris chose her path on her own. Don't lie. There's no way that an excellent child would choose to be a nutritionist. In fact, Doris is not ultimately aiming to be a nutritionist, but I kept that fact to myself. Mom and Dad have never really understood Doris. That's your fault. It has nothing to do with Anna." "What?" From behind me, Doris and Caro appeared, surprised to see Doris here. My parents' anger intensified. Then they turned their criticism towards Caro. "Caro, is this your doing? Did you lead not only Anna but also Doris down the wrong path?" "I think that's none of your business," Doris retorted, stepping forward as if to protect Caro from my father's attempt to attack her. "Don't blame Caro. It was because I showed an interest in cooking that she offered her kitchen to me." Indeed, as Doris visited Caro's house to see her, she developed an interest in cooking and gradually became passionate while helping out in the kitchen. Focused solely on her academic performance, my parents seemed not to notice, even when she came home smelling of sesame oil. Though culinary school was considered, she could not leave home without a scholarship, so she chose nutrition instead. Like me, Doris received a grant-based scholarship, which enabled her to stand up to our parents. She aims to be a chef in the future. My father's lips trembled with anger. "Doris, I'll accept you taking a gap year, so withdraw from the university immediately and go to a preparatory school." "I absolutely refuse." Doris firmly opposed my father's unilateral outburst. Seeing this, my mother tried to reason with Doris gently. "Doris, going into a profession like nutrition or cooking, which anyone can do, isn't worthy of your talents. Everyone is expecting you to become a doctor. In that case, Mom, can you cook? If anyone can do it, do you know how to perfectly fry popcorn shrimp or make vegetable saltimbocca?" Well, it was clear that my mother was not skilled in the kitchen. She had always relied on deli foods and delivered meals to get by. As a result, Doris and I were completely enchanted by Caro's home cooking. While my mother was at a loss for words, Doris laughed coldly. "It's really ironic to live relying on the help of others to cook for you, and then look down on chefs. Well, instead of forcing me to become a doctor, It would be better to give my place to someone who truly desires to be one. It would contribute more to helping others. That's just an excuse. Mom, Dad, don't you know? Actually, my sister is far more talented than I am. What? My parents stood with their mouths agape. There's no way that's true. Do you even know which university my sister is attending? My parents looked at each other. As I thought, you don't know. You also don't know how excellent the architecture department is at the university she attends. She was accepted into a national university's architecture program because she is academically excellent. While it might be an exaggeration to say Doris is more talented than I am, it's a fact that I became a top student thanks to Caro's support. It's true, Mom and Dad. You wouldn't know how well I did in school because you never attended any of my parent-teacher conferences. With that, my parents lost their momentum and fell silent. I looked at them with a cold gaze. The success in raising Anna wasn't due to you, but thanks to Caro. Doris laughed as if she had given up. That can't be true. It's impossible. My father stammered. Don't worry. I've arranged for my tuition myself and I'm prepared to live on my own. I've already moved my things. You didn't notice, did you? What? What? The color drained from my parents' faces, which had been furious just moments ago. Caro watched this unfold, looking completely fed up. You both were only ever interested in grades. It's a shame that your wonderful children weren't understood for who they are. Feeling humiliated, my parents groaned in discomfort. Being put in their place by Caro, whom they had once looked down upon, must have been the ultimate humiliation, but that was the reality. My parents found no words to retort. Eventually, Doris left home that day with the help of a friend, relocating to another state over 5 hours away by car. I didn't expect this incident to prompt any improvement in my parents' behavior or make them back off from Doris and me. When I advanced to my second year of university, my parents suddenly called me. I couldn't shake off an ominous feeling. No matter what they said, I would firmly refuse to return home. We met at a restaurant they frequented, but when Caro accompanied me, my parents clearly showed their displeasure. As soon as we sat down, they spread out numerous pamphlets on the table, all from universities with medical schools. What's this? I asked. We're giving you a chance to retry for medical school. Isn't that a good deal? We're offering you a chance to redeem yourself, to show that you can surpass your sister, because of whom you've been looked down upon. Such an unexpected turn of events. How foolish. They really don't understand. But I decided to play along, just for amusement. Really? I'm so happy. Maybe I can actually get in here. To think that you both care so much about me. I really should be thankful. My father nodded, looking pleased with himself. My mother's face also brightened, as if that could ever be true. I couldn't hold back my laughter and burst out laughing. Ha ha ha! What's wrong? My father asked, confused. I just laugh seeing Dad so happy to take such a proposal seriously. Impossible. After all, I have my own life. What? The moment my parents realized I was joking, their faces rapidly turned red. They were as quick to anger as they were far from the intellectual caliber of a doctor. Doris has never looked down on me. It's you who have always looked down on us. Well, my father stammered. Anyway, I have no intention of trying for medical school again. I responded with firm resolve, and a vein throbbed on my father's forehead. Why can't you and Doris understand the nobility of being a doctor? Is this also Caro's fault? Once again, my father directed his blame at Caro, completely missing the point. Caro simply gave a wry smile. Brother, you're so stubborn. What did you say? Anna and Doris aren't denying the work of doctors. They just have passions elsewhere, and those are in professions like architecture, nutrition, and cooking, which anyone can supposedly do. Even if they are jobs anyone can do, that's fine. Startled by the sudden voice, my father turned around to see two muscular, healthy-looking men standing there. Who are you? He asked. Perfect timing. You just insulted an architect and his son, one of the men replied. What? They looked surprised. At that moment, Carol stood up and gently pulled the young man next to her closer with her arm. This is my husband, she said. It's an honor to meet you, brother-in-law. I am Alexander Davis. Carol has told me a lot about you. Yes, Carol's husband smiled, showing his white teeth. Actually, Carol had started dating Mr. Davis 5 years ago, and they officially got married when I turned 20. Despite my reassurances, they were stubborn and affectionate enough to wait to marry until I was an adult. As a result, I became close to Carol's in-laws and developed an interest in architecture. When Carol suddenly announced her marriage, and her husband spoke meaningfully, My parents were taken aback and lost for words. Next, Carol's father-in-law stepped forward with a smile and began to speak. "Nice to meet you, Dr. Barnes. I am Davis, and I run an architectural business in this area. I understand Anna has heard about my work from Carol and has taken an interest. You are truly an insightful, wonderful person." Yeah, I am planning to retire from the field soon, and I would like Anna to join our company as an architect and learn the ropes to carry on in the future. How dare you decide such a thing on your own? My parents raised their voices. Davis opened his eyes wide and stared at them. "Even if you call it presumptuous, the fact that you have shown no interest in Anna so far is undeniable. Trying to manipulate Anna after her sister has left the house is quite reprehensible, don't you think? How rude. How much do you think outsiders understand about us? Indeed, that's true. But then again, human relationships are mostly about interactions with others." Davis looked around. My parents also looked around and could see their faces losing color. Other customers at the restaurant were looking at them with cold eyes. Raising one's voice inevitably attracts attention. Everyone is disappointed. We never thought Dr. Barnes, whom we've respected for so long, could look down on others like this. "That's not true," as my father trembled. His favorite dish was served. The chef of the restaurant brought it over. "Dr. Barnes, I'm sorry it must be difficult for you to eat food prepared by us ordinary workers. You no longer need to endure it. Unfortunately, this marks the end of our relationship with you. I will communicate the same to other restaurants." "Wait. That's not what I meant. We feel it is not appropriate for people who can be replaced to use your clinic, so we will no longer visit. I will inform my acquaintances of this as well." "What?" All eyes in the restaurant were on my parents. Unable to withstand the pressure, they left the restaurant in a hurry, leaving their food and pamphlets behind. My parents have stopped pressuring me to get a medical degree ever after that occurred. They came up to me after a while and begged, "We want to clear up everyone's misunderstandings." It appears that the restaurant's patientele significantly decreased as a result of the occurrence. The hospital had been there for a very long time and saw a lot of frequent elderly patients who also happened to be regular customers of a nearby restaurant. Patients started relocating to a newly opened hospital next to the station as a result of word of mouth among the elderly in the area, which led to a reputation that the hospital has the worst physicians who ignore their patients. Not a single patient went back to the hospital my father manages, since the physicians at the new facility were not only knowledgeable, but also kind. Soon, the management started to decline. As tensions increased, my father lost his temper with the workforce, causing a series of resignations from nurses and administrative personnel. This fed even more accusations that the hospital's doctors were unethical, which kept patients and staff numbers down. The cost of running the hospital has increased. My parents thought everyone would come back if I could only sort out the misconceptions. However, a negative reputation is difficult to shake once it has gained traction. There was no need for rectification because the majority of the reputation was founded in reality. But there were also some overblown tales. One tale goes, for instance, of my father confronting an inept cook in a restaurant and demanding an apology. I have a peculiar recollection that makes it seem as though I saw such a thing, even though that isn't true. The family-run hospital eventually had to close, and family members voiced their criticism. My parents sold our family's stately home and began a secluded life in the country because they could no longer stand the humiliation. After 5 years, I've established a thriving profession for myself as an architect at Carol's in-laws' architectural business. Even if I'm still not up to the top designer's level, I'm working hard every day to realize my ambition. Designing the restaurant that Doris and Carol run is that dream. In addition, Doris and I intend to let the neighborhood kids use this location once a week. Carol saved us, and we want to return the favor by helping the kids. This is a lifelong commitment and sincere aspiration for us women. With Carol's support and that of my dream-sharing co-workers, I am having a wonderful existence every single day.